audio and visual podcast, a weekly discussion about all things guitar building and some random tangents as well, featuring members of the Guitar Builders Collective from all around the world. The Guitar Builders Collective is a like-minded group of individuals that have come together to share their experiences, knowledge and inspiration for guitar building. Each week you can join us in the live YouTube chat or catch up at a later point. It's also available as audio where you'll miss out on seeing our lovely faces and some of the visuals we share along the way. You can also find the Guitar Builders Collective via our forum, over on Instagram where we share images of members' builds. We've got a thriving Facebook group, and we do hope that no matter what your experience and knowledge is, you'll become a welcome member of this community too. Fantastic. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hola. Good morning.
Welcome to, is this our third? This must be our third year that we've started doing this in now. I forgot to look back and check exactly when the first one was. That's fantastic. So, yes.
You're probably right.
Before I go into what we're going to talk about today, I'll just quickly introduce who's here so anyone that's listening and not watching the video knows who's joining me. I'm Daniel from Devil & Sons Guitars. And we've got joining us tomorrow from where they are, over in Australia. We've got Arran from Adair Guitars.
G'day.
And Ray from Tasmaniak Guitars.
Hola. I'm here.
And then over in America, there's Scott from Bonehead. And Mark Gutierrez. Hey, Mark.
Hello.
Fantastic. Yeah, so look, just let you know before we carry on what might be happening going forward with the Guitar Builders Collective chat. Potentially not much change from normal in that we are aiming to do it every Thursday live on YouTube, except I've already lined up a few guests who can't do it on Thursday. So there might be the odd exception where we do it on another day. So if you want to join us live, until the clocks change, which sort of pushes things around for us all in our different time zones, we will be doing it at 1 p.m. GMT, so that's 1 p.m. my time, which is 7 a.m. where Scott and Mark are. Is that CET? Something like that.
Something like that.
Something like
that.
That
Works.
And unfortunately, that makes it really hard for the Australians to join us because where Arran and Ray are, it is midnight now, so it's the following day. So at the last one of each month, the last Thursday of each month, we're going to do it at a slightly different time. That will be morning for me, 9 a.m., which makes it 8 p.m. for Arran and Ray and the other people joining from Australia and New Zealand. Except, like I said, there are a few exceptions. So I think we've got someone joining us from Japan in a few weeks' time, or early February, who's coming on with Corey because he's one of Corey's friends. So that will mean the times change a bit then to fit them in as well. But, you know, if you're following along with the audio, that goes up the day after normally, so you'll still get it coming into your feeds at whatever time that is. But if you want to join in live, you can see on my YouTube channel, the Devil & Sons Guitars YouTube channel, the playlist which has all the past episodes and all the future ones that are scheduled up to 6 weeks in advance, because I can't go much further than that. Fantastic. So one of the things we're going to do today is really have a bit of a reflection back on 2024, think about what we might be doing in 2025. I was just saying off air that actually for me, as I always say, one of the things I love about doing this chat is the fact I get to talk to people about guitar building. It's sort of therapeutic, but it's also very good for generating ideas for me. I find it very inspiring, and it's kind of cathartic to have this as an opportunity to look back on what I've done and talk about it, because I don't really have that many people to talk to in real life that I can physically meet up with who are guitar builders who share that sort of interest. So I was thinking just before we came on that 2025 seems like an odd number to me. It really feels like the future. And I was just looking up which films have already taken place. We've gone past them. So, for example, we've gone past the time that Marty McFly travels to in Back to the Future 2.
Yep.
Judgment Day in Terminator 2 has already happened. There's a few other things like that, sort of the end of the world apocalypse that we've missed as well. The Running Man, Escape from New York, Planet of the Apes, they've all taken place. So we're sort of in the future, but at the same time, most guitarists are in the past with their Telecaster being the best design and their Tonewood debate. And I, for one, feel very excited about the future at the moment of guitar building, having seen, for example, some of Mark's new videos. I've been watching you making just things using different techniques. I've been building my second attempt at building one of Ray's 3D printed guitars, and 3D printing just seems phenomenal to me. I know, Ray, we might talk about later, you're also experimenting with other bits of 3D printing. It's not just the body of the guitar, the neck as well. We're going to talk about templates in a future episode and how the tools that we can access as luthiers are just at our fingertips instead of having to pay huge amounts to ship things around the world. It's fantastic.
Well, I'm hoping when that episode comes up that I'll actually have a
Oh, Ray, I just lost your voice, your vocal.
Oh, okay.
I know you're back.
I'm back. I'm back again. Okay. So yeah, what I was saying was that when we do that next episode, I'm hoping to basically, there's a project I've been working on for about 7 months, and I'm just about ready to say it's a success.
Oh,
so hopefully we can debut it on that episode, but the 3D printing gods may say otherwise.
That sounds exciting. So for those of you that don't know, most of the time we have a different guest on each week for the podcast, but what we're trying to do a bit more of is have some sort of focused episodes. So we had one a few weeks ago which was focusing on 3D printing and the actual process of printing guitars. I think we're going to have one soon which is more on the process of 3D printing things around guitars like tools, etc. I'm sure we're going to have one about CAD, which is obviously not just useful for 3D printing, but a lot of people that do CNC work. We've also got one coming up, which is focusing on sort of design methodology. So I don't know if you remember, we've had a few weeks ago, Mike from Ingold Audio Designs on talking about his guitars. He was a tutor at a college where he taught Andrew from Nitro Guitars, who now is a chief designer at Jackson Guitars. They're both coming on together to talk about the process of designing and what they think about when they're designing, how you go around, I guess, not just thinking about the clients and the end users, but how you can build on the world of design, the history of design that exists. Sounds intriguing. Sounds great. We've just lost Ray. Hopefully he'll be back.
You know, something you mentioned, Daniel, about guitarists being stuck in the past. And also you mentioned the idea of like this future that we live in and being excited about new materials and new processes. I've been watching a lot of Ken Parker's YouTube channel because he's my favorite luthier. And his neck designs are pretty innovative in terms of the idea of like a soft inner wood and then being wrapped in a hard exoskeleton, right? But that idea isn't new. He got that idea from the old lute manufacturers back in the day. So lutes were designed in the very same way, where you have a very soft wood, like a fir, for example, but it's quarter sawn, right? And then you wrap it in a very, very hard veneer, like a maple or an ebony. So you basically are encasing it like a lobster. And that's the way lutes were made. And that's where he got his idea from. So now it has me thinking, right? Like it's still a valid approach, this, method that came out hundreds and hundreds of years ago that we can kind of reuse. Instead of using maybe a softwood, we can use something 3D printed. We can use a soft filament if we wanted to. So like the past and the future are still kind of like merging. You can still take a lot of inspiration from that.
Oh yeah, 100%. In fact, I remember you talking about something similar when we were talking about 3D printing the other week, and Jack from JC Guitars was on talking about a very thinly lightweight printed guitar body he'd made that he'd then wrapped in carbon fiber. So a sort of similar idea, that kind of wrapping things. Yeah, I'm always intrigued by people that come to something from something else. So come to guitar design from another background. So for me, I came at it from an arts background, and that's potentially why I use some of the techniques I now use in my sculpture on my art guitars. And obviously Ray comes from the what did you call it? The additive not the
Additive manufacturing.
additive manufacturing. So 3D printing, bringing that into your world. And then, as we just mentioned, Andrew and Mike coming from a design background. So it's intriguing. I wonder what things exist, sort of other techniques, other skills, other industries that are kind of lost to time almost, that could be useful for guitar building. This isn't the same, but when I first had an art studio, it was in a complex of artist studios, and there was someone who was a stonemason who was based in the studio next to me. And he was saying how a lot of the skills for stonemasonry just have gone because people don't do it anymore. So we've just forgotten how to do the things that people used to be able to do so well.
Yeah, I watched a lot of conspiracy theory videos about how the pyramids were made and how like the mega structures in like Peru were made. And it is a lost art. Like, it's just crazy to think that there's a point where we could build those type of structures, and now we can't. Like, there's no way we can do it anymore.
If only they made a YouTube video of it.
If only.
Well, I mean, if you paid attention to the great document on the idiocracy, you know, we're headed toward losing all our real skills.
I was going to say near Ray and myself, there's I have a lost trades fair at the start of each year. It's in March, in sort of central Victoria, and that's the whole idea that you've got these trades that the artists and the things that are going to be forgotten, or if they're not taught or passed on. So unfortunately, there's quite a large music festival that I go to somewhere else on the same long weekend every year. But yeah, that's the whole idea, that there's, you know, I think there's a few guitar builders and knife makers, chair makers, barrel makers, any kind of blacksmithing, all those kind of things. So it is kind of good to see those things around, but I think it does take events like that, or people using them in different ways. Otherwise, there will be things that will disappear, and we won't be aware of them until it's too late.
So I just want to jump in there, Aaron. That lost trades fair. Brad from BB Guitars is actually I know he had a stall last year. Last year. And I think he's going back this year as well. But basically, he displays his guitars and also does demonstrations of woodworking for guitars and luthier.
I think a lot of the weekend is demonstrations, that as well as seeing stalls and seeing the finished product. You can go to workshops and just watch. If you want to stand all day and watch someone construct or create something, wood carving or wood turning, all of those kind of things. So yeah, one day I'll get there if they change the weekend or time that it's on.
That sounds amazing. We'll have to ask him about that. Have you got any idea what other sort of skills are there?
I'll have to look it up, but it's all those. The things that I've mentioned. What else is it? I can't remember.
Sorry,
Lost Trades Fair. They've got Instagram accounts and social media type things, but yeah, if you can kind of think of it as a trade that's hundreds of years old, they'll probably have something similar.
I just popped a link up in the chat.
Oh, there
cool.
we go.
One of my inspirations for Devil and Sons guitars was the idea of it being a sort of business that was passed down, a skill that had been passed down from generation to generation. I like the idea of something that you can sort of trace the origin back a long way, so that there's some skill that's really based in learning directly and not just sort of washing your own things together and seeing what happens, which is basically what I do. So I'm sort of lying in many ways, but there you go.
Yeah, these trades are the hand tool based things and building things that are designed to last rather than be gone in a couple of years. So any of those kind of things, which fits perfectly, and even the approach that people have to guitar building, whether it is the hand tools where it's hand planes and files and rasps and things, compared to the CNC, that we can kind of pick and choose what we want or what we're interested in or what we want to learn, and sort of mash them together.
Yeah, we're just having a quick look at some of the presenters that are coming up this year. We've got things like a scissor maker, a plane maker, silhouette artists, chair makers, knife makers, wall makers, boot makers. Like the list goes on, just looking up at that. So there's some really cool stuff.
This is the conversation that would draw Ben Crow in.
Yeah,
I was thinking the same thing. You know, these are the inspirations that he brings into what he does.
Ninjaki's just put in the chat that she loves going to live demos, glass blowing, knife forging, woodworking. Definitely, like watching people making knives and pens is something I love watching on YouTube.
I have I've thought for a long time, if I had just a giant sack of money fall in my lap and I had more money than I knew what to do with and no risk involved, I would open a maker space and hire, pros in each area to be there to help people. And, I mean, work to woodwork to metalwork, you name it. Anything crafty at all. I think that would be awesome. But that's pie in the sky.
So maybe anyone that's watching in the future could leave a comment or let me know if there's anyone you think that you're aware of that you might want to have us get on the show. Not necessarily a guitar builder, but something else that is handcrafting, because that can be inspiring in so many ways. And we want to sort of widen out what we're doing a bit. So definitely some of the people that we invited for this year include people that run companies that make things sort of tangential to woodworking. So oils and waxes and paints and things like that. And learning a bit more about the history of those. I think you don't need to know the history of them or how they're made for when you're making a guitar, but hopefully it'd be really inspiring or interesting in some way. Hey, does anyone want to kick us off with any of their plans that they might have for this year?
It's been, I don't know, at least 6 months since I did anything in the shop, really. And that's not a good thing, but it's been a crazy year. I've had a lot to deal with. I've got plans drawn up on the bench just waiting for me to start. So I was kind of hoping relatively early this year I could actually start building on that project and get back into the swing of things. I had a kind of commission from the dude. It's the one with the really, really thin headstock. It's basically done. It's got finish on it. I just need to string it up and see if it explodes. And I didn't worry about it at the time, but increasingly I was starting to worry about that thin little area on the headstock. And if it does implode, I guess I have a backup plan, but I don't want to have to do that. So I do have a line that I want to try to do, and the hardware that I got is kind of Spanberg-ish, shockingly. But that's all I got planned at the moment with the marriage and the move and everything. It's going to take some time to get everything settled, but it's kind of what I'm planning.
With such a busy life like that, it's easy to not have time to do things. I do find though that sometimes not doing stuff is really useful. Like I'm not begrudging the last couple of weeks. So obviously Christmas and New Year, but just prior to Christmas, both my kids were ill at different times, and as a result, I've hardly been in my workshop doing what I wanted to do. And so it's been a bit frustrating. But at the same time, last night, I had this, what I think is a brilliant idea for a new design that I want to work on for a guitar. And a couple of other things have been happening over the last couple of weeks when I haven't been able to get into my studio, of just like thought processes developing. So sometimes having a break can be really useful. I know when I used to teach art, it's not the same because I was often teaching on short courses at college or in a school, but I'd often get people to just break from what they were doing, even if they were rolling with it was going okay, because sometimes just having a break, you come back and you see things differently and all starts new.
Well, we've already talked about rubber ducking.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah.
That term doesn't quite mean stepping away for 6 to 8 months, but same concept kind of applies.
Now, remind me, is rubber ducking specifically a programming related phrase?
Well, that's where it originated, but I don't know. I can see it being useful in a number of different fields. So I don't know for sure. I hadn't heard that term. I've been soundboarding people for years, and I didn't know that was a thing.
So let me just go on about myself for a moment then. Some of the things that I've thought about while I've had this break. And it's sort of a realization of what I need to focus on this year. So the last couple of years of working in guitars, I've been doing a few different things, trying to try out a way of maybe making it a more viable business. And they haven't necessarily panned out. So I started off 2 years ago trying to do more repair work. And I think without a proper shop front, or without really focusing 100% on promoting repair work, I just wasn't getting enough in. And the work I was getting in is very much, someone wants to repair, they can't really wait a long time for it. It has to happen then, or maybe you can say next week, but then you're going to risk losing the business. So I had to keep stopping what I was working on to do the repairs when they came in. And a number of the repairs that came in were easy to fix, but they involved things that I didn't have because I hadn't done that repair before or for a while. So I'd have to buy in like some new materials or make a new jig or something. It was just taking up a lot more time. And if I wasn't getting enough repeat business in, it wasn't really worth doing it. So like, for example, doing a classic Gibson headstock repair, I made myself a really good jig to do that with, because I've done a couple of those now. But that jig took me much longer than making the repair did. So that didn't really work out. And then I don't know if you remember, but last year I really focused on trying to do things that I thought might help with the guitar community, like this podcast. I was also doing that Luthier's lunch break, which I was doing monthly, a little compilation 30-45 minute video on YouTube, which is a compilation of different people doing guitar related things for inspiration. So often they were talking through a process or showing a jig or a tool that they're using. And although I really enjoyed doing it, it took a lot of time and effort. And I realized that that's something that I like doing, but I can't justify doing that unless I'm doing it in my spare time. So I sort of put that aside. Also, the end of last year was the 10th anniversary of me being on YouTube. And in that time, I've come and gone with what I'm doing. And I was going to spend last year really focused on YouTube, but really what we're doing this podcast and that Luthier's lunch break, I couldn't justify doing any more videos. So I've decided that as a way of forcing me to do certain things and to keep my YouTube going, I'm going to start doing more regular live streams. So for example, I've already lined up for the next 2 months. You can see on my YouTube channel the list of these. Every Wednesday evening at 9 p.m. UK time, I'm going to do a live stream. I've got lots of little jobs that need to be done. For example, I've got to make a nut for a bass guitar. I can do that in a live stream, quite straightforward. I've got a pedal board that I've been building to finish off. I've got a couple of guitars that just need a little bit of wiring on them. I've got the 3D print I'm currently doing of Ray's guitar to assemble. And actually, I did a live stream a few weeks ago like that, assembling the 3D guitar. And it was great fun because it meant I got to do some work and chat to people at the same time. And I found that because I was talking aloud while I was doing it, I was thinking through the process in a slightly different way to when I'm just on my own. So it was actually beneficial. So I think doing these weekly live streams is a way of me keeping the YouTube going, making sure these little odd jobs that I've just put off can be done, and hopefully be a bit more creative for me in the way I'm doing it. So we'll see. We'll do a couple of months of that and see how that works. Yeah, I don't know. I'm also, as some of you know, I've just finished a Kickstarter campaign. I can go into that a bit later, but as part of that, I've offered everyone that's backed a guitar or bought a guitar from me the opportunity to have a live stream every now and then of when I'm building, so they can see their guitars being built. So in the past, when I've built guitars for people, like every couple of weeks or if I'm in a busy period every couple of days, I'll send them photos of updates. I thought just doing a live stream where they could drop in might be really cool to see that happening as well. Again, another way of me doing things where I don't feel alone in my workshop all the time. And then, as some of you know, membership for this channel, and anyone that's a member gets access to a few other things. So I've also timetabled in my weekly live stream on Mondays, which is a very short thing, where I will be doing a bit of a workshop tour. So I've already done 11 episodes of that, I think, or 14 episodes of going around my workshop. And normally, because I don't timetable them, normally only one person's around. So maybe I might get a few more people around. But all of these things, especially the things I'm doing for the members, I want it to be something for the members, so to say thank you. But at the same time, I can't just be doing things that aren't going to be that beneficial. So my current plan is, once I've finished my tour of the workshop over a number of couple of months more of episodes, I'll then have content that already exists live that's just been members only, that I can just edit very slightly without much work to put up as proper videos. So I'm just trying to find ways to do things that are a bit more while I'm working, not so much of a distraction, that might be useful in the long run.
Hey, on that note of YouTube, I don't know if you noticed, Daniel, but like there's a new tab in YouTube, in your YouTube studio, where there's like an AI section that basically generates videos for you, and video suggestions and video thumbnails and video titles. Have you seen that?
So I've seen it, but I haven't looked into it. But quite a while ago, there were a couple of other programs or apps you could buy, like TubeBuddy, that did exactly that. They analysed your competitors. You put in the sort of videos you watch, and they would give you suggestions. And they were so unconnected to what I was doing. Have you used this? Is it much better, the AI?
Again, I just kind of casually looked at it. I don't ever think I would ever use it. And I just kind of casually looked at the titles and topics, and it does bullet points for you. It basically does an outline and a script for you. They didn't, I wasn't that impressed.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's the thing I came across. So yeah, great. It came up with ideas, but the problem of what we do is it's quite niche. So although, yes, there are a lot of people that make guitar building videos, compared to other things, it's very, very small. So it started just comparing it to other guitar related videos. So some of the suggestions I was getting were to do with sort of explaining different modes and scales, or more like doing reviews of instruments and things. And actually, although I haven't focused enough ever on YouTube for it to be a money making thing, all the videos I've made have been to do with things I'm interested in, where I want to pass on that information. And occasionally they end up in someone commissioning me for a job because they've seen, oh, I've seen Daniel knows how to relic guitars well. I'd like a relic guitar. I'll ask him, that kind of thing.
Surely all that AI stuff is, it's looking at the videos that are getting the most likes or views or popular ones. So then you kind of run the risk of just doing the same as what everyone else is doing. So, it's not really bringing up those new clever ideas and things that
you're
people
right.
would be interested in.
Yeah. But on that note, Arran, like we know it works. Like it doesn't matter that 1,000 people have made, resin guitars. Those things get 1 million views. You build a stupid resin guitar, it's going to get 1 million views. Simple as that.
Yeah,
we know the formula, but we don't do it.
Yeah,
exactly. And if that's what you're after and making money, that's what you need to do.
I've noticed too on the, when you upload the videos now, it's got the AI generated button that, you've got to say if any of your video content has been generated by AI. I don't know what happens with that information, if you tick that box or not, but yeah, I don't think I'll be ticking that box anytime soon.
The other problem I've had with YouTube is semi-AI related, in that I was warned by Baritone Studios, Mark there, when we first got him on as a guest. He was saying, if you're doing a regular live stream, you should probably set up another channel, because he'd heard that can really impact your viewership and how it works. And almost straight away from when I started doing regular lives, the views on my new videos have almost fallen off. So some of my new videos get 100 views, a couple of 100 views. It's like it's almost not worth doing those videos. Whereas my older evergreen videos are still getting a good few thousand views a month for the older videos, but the new ones just aren't getting any traction. And then I spent, I think, nearly 9 months last year doing regular shorts. And what the shorts did is it really increased the amount of subscribers I was getting, increased the amount of watch time for the shorts, but it didn't have any effect on my new videos, and my older, longer videos started to decrease in the amount of views they were getting. So I stopped doing shorts as well. And the older videos seem to be slowly creeping up. But a lot of my videos are very much, if you want to know how to do this one thing, you do a Google search and my video might pop up showing you how to do it. And some of those videos are ones that I know people watch, like on the setup videos, they might watch every few months as a reminder when they want to do their setup. So they have a purpose, but the newer videos I was making just weren't hitting that mark. And a lot of newer videos I was making were because people had offered me or given me materials or paints or things to use and asked me to make a video of it. So, I just want to do the things where I'm in my workshop having fun and put them up now.
No, I agree with that, Daniel. I think that's where I want to go to. Like, it's always those tiny little projects that make me super happy, and I get a lot of satisfaction from them. Because the guitar builds are long. Like this last build took me 3 months, right? But I like the little projects. So this year I'm going to do more like the experimental stuff, which is what really makes me happy. Because every day I walk out of my house and I walk to my shop and I pass like my, those little lights in the garden that have solar panels. And it always reminds me of the video I made where I made a pickup out of a laser and one of those little light panels, right? And those are the kind of things I love to do, right? The experimental stuff. Because my mantra has always been like, show them something they've never seen before. And it's a line, right? And sometimes they get really close to that line. Sometimes I'm on the line. And sometimes I'm off of it. But that's my mantra for this year. Show them something they've never seen before. So I'm going to have all these little projects that are in my mind. I have like a little to-do list that I keep of all my ideas. And so this year I'm going to be working with some servo motors. So I got some servo motors and I got some like little Arduinos. And I think I'm going to do like these like multi-string self-tensioning kind of robotic devices, not necessarily guitar building, but something that'll play itself that I can hook up with MIDI. I don't know. It's just a crazy idea that I want to explore. And those are the kind of things that make me happy. And those are the kind of things that make me excited. And I want to do more of those. And I know I just said stupid resin guitars, but I'm going to be working with a lot of resin this year, like a ton. And so, and it's just I guess serendipity, I guess. I wanted to work with resin. A company reached out to me and they're like, hey, we have these resin products. Would you like some? I'm like, I'll take it if you just give me a lot, because I have a lot of ideas. They gave me like, I think 2 gallons for my first batch of like resin. So I have enough to play with to kind of like pursue all these crazy ideas that I have. So I know that it's going to be a lot of experimental stuff. I might build like one guitar this year. But other than that, it's going to be just like, let's experiment. Let's have fun. Let's show them something they've never seen before. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, look, we said you get the AI telling you what to make money, but of course, there's always the innovators that do different things that start new trends, start new things off. So that is brilliant. And by the way, when we finish on this call, I'm going to update it all. But links to everyone's YouTube's, social medias, etc., is in the video description, the podcast description, so you can find Mark and the rest of us there.
And that's actually one thing I've been thinking about, because as a lot of you guys will know, my social media presence is very low. I mean, like, okay, yeah, I'm in a lot of groups and I'm always, showing off what I've done. But if you go to my YouTube channel, there's one video that I recorded one afternoon after work, and it goes for about 2 minutes. And that's it. And I've actually been sitting back thinking, it's just like, I need to do more. I need to have a bigger social media presence, and I need to make more demo videos and things like this. And and just over the Christmas break, I sort of sat back and I thought to myself, it's like, why? Why am I actually going to do that? And I sort of had to, reel myself in here. And it's just like, actually, that's not what I'm after. It's like, for you guys, getting yourselves out there and all that, that's, it's exactly what you need to do. But I sort of had to, I guess, almost reel myself back into my grassroots of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And well, first off, one of the reasons why I'm doing it is they told me I couldn't, and that never goes well. The moment you tell me that I can't do something, well, I'm going to prove to you that I can, or at least give it a damn good shot. And I think that in 2024, I've been able to prove quite successfully that additive manufacturing and 3D printing can actually make quite a good guitar. At least I think that. And I sort of had to rethink about where I was going to go with it next. And that's not actually increasing my social media presence. It's actually going to be doing the next thing that they told me I can't do. And that's basically building acoustic guitars with it now. And, you know, like there's, when I went down this path of, you know, 3D printing, you know, electric guitar bodies, it wasn't new to me. Like designing an electric guitar body or building it out of wood was something that I'd done previously. You know, I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to use either medium. I've never built an acoustic guitar. So this is going to be 2025. I think I'm going to do a lot of focusing on acoustics, and there's going to be a lot of mistakes and a lot of wasted material. But yeah, that's one of the things that I'm going to do this year is stop making the same thing over and over again. It's just like, you know, I can build pretty much anything you want in an electric guitar. And I've had a few people tell me, it's just like, well, why don't you do what you can't do with, you know, standard subtractive manufacturing, like, you know, with CNCs and things like that. And it's like, I could do that. But again, at that point, I'm creating weird shapes and designs that aren't really for me. You know, people ask me, why do I do, you know, keep doing Strats and Telecasters? It's because I like them. That's what I like. But, you know, at this point in time, we really haven't seen many successful 3D printed acoustic guitars.
Have we seen any 3D printed acoustic guitars? I mean, this is a brilliant idea, Ray. This is a brilliant idea. If anyone can do it, you can. I'm going to say the opposite. You can do it. I know you can. I can't wait to see it.
Well, and see, so this is the thing. This is the thing that's been 9 months in the making is, yeah, I can. I can. They haven't been as successful as I like. But each one, you know, as you do, you know, you make a mistake, you learn from it, you grow, and you continue forwards. Some of the mistakes, I should have known better. But hey, you know, now I know better. But there's so many people out there that go, you know, with an electric guitar, it's just like, oh, the wood doesn't matter, or the wood does matter. And everyone has the idea that you'll always say it, but when it comes to an acoustic, the wood is everything. And I'm sort of on the path to prove that the material is everything, not the wood.
Some of the ones that I've seen, you know, just looking into 3D printing over the last 2 or 3 months for me, that when I'm searching around the internet for files and ideas, that there's a lot of like acoustic toy guitars that, you know, little ukuleles or things that you could strum and get a sound and maybe fret some notes on it, but they're not designed to be serious kind of things. It's more like a novelty toy thing. So yeah, it sounds really interesting how you're going to bring all this together and what you can come up with.
I've seen there's been a few like thin line, like 2-3 inch thick thin line acoustics that have been made, and the first thing I noticed with them is half the time they've got electric guitar strings on them, and to me there's no way that you're going to get a decent full-bodied sound out of something that's that thick running a set of 10 to 46s. You know, you need to have your bronze strings on there. You need to have the big body, and that's what I'm aiming for. And basically, where where I started with this was I didn't know how to design an acoustic guitar. I knew the basics of it, and I could 3D model, but I knew that with a traditional acoustic guitar, your bracing on the soundboard is absolutely everything. The thickness of the soundboard, the back, the sides, also plays a really huge part in it. And I thought, right, so for the very first one, I'm going to 3D print basically a exact replica of a acoustic guitar, like a full-bodied guitar. I did that. I strung it up with 11 to 50s, I think, whatever the 11 gauge strings are. That guitar lasted a week before it folded in half, which was pretty much exactly what I expected. But from there, I was able to basically pull apart the guitar, see where it failed, and see what part of my bracing didn't work, or it's basically things like that. Because the last thing I wanted to do was increase the thickness of anything. I didn't want to increase the thickness of the walls, the top, or the back. I wanted to keep that nice and thin, just so it was going to, basically resonate just like a standard acoustic guitar. But I've just about nailed it, I think.
I've got a question, Ray, that's just sprung to my mind, which is, like you were saying, you're on lots of forums and groups. So I've only recently started going onto those, and I see you're very active, supporting other people and interacting with other people. And it feels like, but it might just be because I've only just joined this community, but it feels like the 3D printing guitar world is growing as it's becoming more and more accessible. Yep. So yes, people are looking for designs like yours they can just print off, but at some point people start to use those designs, because what I'm learning from the 3D world is lots of people make iterations of other people's designs, and everyone seems open to that, which is great. So potentially with your acoustic building, that's going to be a thing that maybe other people then start not buying into, but doing, because they're seeing you're doing it, seeing it's working. Maybe they'll take your designs and change them somehow, innovate them, do different things with them, or come up with their own things. But do you think, is there going to be a point, because I don't know enough about this world, where the actual material we're using is suddenly going to become outdated and we'll be using different materials to print with? Or is like PLA there for the long run? Because as you're saying, materials.
Yeah, so I think materials like PLA will always be there. There are definitely newer materials coming out onto the market. The issue that arises is that those materials are often designed for they've got a certain job. Like, we can print in nylon, which is made for hard wearing, high abrasion, and the part still survives. It's also extremely strong, all of that fun stuff. And I've been keeping an eye on all of the new materials that come out, and they hit my inbox before before you see it on social media. I see it several months beforehand. Which companies are working with what, and at the end of the day, I haven't seen anything that is firstly is going to be better than using like ABS and PLA. And secondly, everything that is comparable is an absolute nightmare to print.
Right.
So, like Daniel, at the moment you've been using PLA exclusively, right?
Yeah.
The moment you swap over to ABS, you'll face a whole new set of challenges. You'll print things and they will lift themselves off the bed. You'll pull them off the bed and they'll be perfect. And then, half an hour later, when the part is completely cooled, it's deformed and it's changed shape slightly and it's no longer dimensionally accurate. So you've got to take that into account when you're using it. These materials that are coming out are even harder. I've got some here that, well, one of them's called Peak, P-E-E-K. I need a hot end temperature of almost 500 degrees to print that. The bed temp is almost 200, and I need to keep the chamber at about 120 degrees. Once I've done that and I've got the printed part, I then need to turn around and put it in an annealing oven to actually, basically reset the crystalline structure of the polymers to actually get the strength out of it. And on top of that, the stuff is about $500 a kilo.
Wow. Yeah. So look, I'm very excited to see these acoustic builds as the year progresses. I'm intrigued to find out more about all these materials, which we will have in a future episode when we're focusing on 3D printing. I guess what was in my head is, excuse my weird tangent here, just a couple of days ago, I remembered the band Aerosmith. I'd sort of forgotten they existed. And I remembered how much I liked their music from their 70s period. I think they had 8 or 9 albums out in the 70s. And when I first got into listening to Aerosmith, I could only listen to it by buying the albums. And at that point, they already had 30 albums, I think, something 20-odd albums. So I was having to buy all these CDs. And then it just occurred to me the other day, I can listen to all their music by streaming it. I just sort of forgotten they existed, so I can go back and look at it. And then I was thinking about this idea of how technology has changed so much. And that whole, when I was buying the CDs, Napster existed. And I remember someone describing 3D printing as being on the verge of like when music was first on Napster and you could get some things. But it was a bit harder to get the exact files and get what you want. And it's slowly becoming more ubiquitous until it will be the thing everyone's just used to getting it all. And I just can't imagine I can imagine, but I can't wait to be in that point where we can just hit buttons and all these things to come. And I love the idea that you're pushing that, and you don't need your Instagram, etc., to market what you're doing. You're busy focusing on what hasn't been done yet and trying to do those things that haven't been done. Just like Mark,
that's exactly
that line.
Exactly what I do. And I think what's cool is every now and again, like I'll jump on Google and I'll just start searching 3D printed guitars. And I just want to, and I set it to, filter everything from the last week. Just so I just get the latest of what other people are doing. And what's actually really cool is I'll see a lot of designs start to pop up. And I'll look at it and I'll go, that looks familiar. And it'll be things like I'll see, like a guitar that's done as a building block with a jigsaw puzzle down the middle of it. Because someone has obviously seen my what I've done, listened to why I've said that I use interlocking components, and then they've implemented it themselves. And I'm starting to see that more and more in the builds that are popping up in social media now, and I absolutely love that, because that means that what I set out to do is actually beginning to work. Like I think if you go back to like the very first episode that I was on, I said that I'm not here to do this to make money. I'm not here to prove that, 3D printing guitars is better than a wood guitar. I just want people to see the alternatives and what else is possible. And seeing people using, some of my design features in their own designs tells me that I'm doing something. I'm making progress on what I wanted to do. And that was one of the bigger reasons why I've decided I'm not going to focus on doing social media or focus on selling as many files as possible. I'm going to focus on what I did, why I did this originally, because they told me I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So we're going to go over to it now. And
I know I facetiously said at the beginning that we live in the future, but people still want Telecasters. But I'm hoping there is a massive audience out there for these 3D printed things.
Hey, Daniel, getting back to the acoustic real quick. I just saw a video on YouTube where someone, I want to say he's in India or somewhere, builds an acoustic guitar out of a bucket. Have you seen that video? It's like those big 10-gallon, 5-gallon buckets you can get at the Home Depot or whatever. Paint buckets, right? They're just big buckets. And he just uses a jigsaw and like a Craftsman box cutter to get the sides and then make the top. And he uses some kind of glue. I don't know. He never described what glue he's using, but he makes an entire like white acoustic out of 2 buckets, just 2 buckets. And it worked. I mean, he made the neck, he made the body, and it's a acoustic made out of a plastic bucket. And so when you were talking about how you're trying to like, maybe your end goal is that full bodied sound. I don't think that would be my goal. Like if I was I'm not going to make an acoustic till I have something to offer, right? I don't have anything to offer, but I know for a fact that I wouldn't be going after the full bodied sound. That's not what I'd be going for. I'd be going for something different. And I would recommend, Ray, that you maybe look into like banjos that don't have bracing. Look into the past, like look to the past for inspiration too, to see maybe we don't need such a big box. Maybe it can be smaller. Maybe it doesn't have to be that shape. Like all those maybes, like all those maybes are making my head turn already. Like I'm already thinking of all that.
So actually, I don't have I try to make sure that whenever I do these streams, I don't have any of the acoustic bodies hanging around to raise questions. I'm kind of regretting that at the moment, because what you're saying about looking to the past is exactly what I did. So a few of the iterations that I made were actually resonators. I basically, I didn't use a metal resonator, but I worked on the concept of how the resonator works, and I built that into the body as well. Didn't work the way I wanted it to, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't. It was just, it was just doing it like exactly what you were saying. Taking it from the past, seeing what was previously done, and what is going to work, moving forwards. A part of what I do, where I'm making these standard shapes instead of doing what CNCs can't do and what we can't do with hand tools, is one of the reasons why I am pretty set on chasing that big full-bodied sound, because I'm so focused on getting people to see this as a potential alternative. And until they actually see it doing the same thing as a traditionally built acoustic guitar, I don't think that many minds will be changed.
Yeah.
On the same hand, I've been wrong about a lot of things, and I could be wrong about this one. So
I'm intrigued. I'm also just inspired by what you Michael just said in episode 15 of this live stream. So that was back in, when was that? It's just over a year ago, I think. We had Miles McNally on, so I'm going to give him a message, see if he wants to come back on again. He, as well as talking about his actual guitar building, he does lots of repairs of interesting instruments from around the world, both modern and historic. So lots of weird Japanese stringed instruments he was showing us, and it would be intriguing to revisit his collection and him with this kind of mindset of what we can learn from those instruments to put into some sort of newer designs. Anyway, Miles, if you're listening, send me a message, but I'll try and beat you to that. Arran, I just wanted to loop you in here because you've been doing a lot of 3D printing recently. Maybe you could tell us a bit about what you're up to.
Yeah, so I've probably had it for 3 months now. It sort of came from all the talk that we've had together, and more not so much for me printing the guitars or the bodies, but sort of parts or components and tools and jigs and all those kind of things. So I've been working on my Transformers themed guitar, which I'm having too much fun with, as I do when I get stuck into the theme projects. And that was that sort of guitar was going to be the same idea, that it had pickup inserts that you could just change in and out really easily for different pickup combinations and switches and all those kind of things. And then, I started thinking about that. Well, that would be so much easier with a 3D printer, just to print the things exactly to size. And then I started thinking about, themes and having fun. So that's sort of something that I've sort of got on the go. And then as well as that, it's all of the jigs and tools and just all the fun storage stuff for the garage for all the drawers and things. So I can show you quickly that. show you some of the parts. So that's the stage. I'll get that out of the way. The stage of the body at the moment with lots and lots of. Oops, where am I going? Oh wait, lots and lots of holes and cavities on the back. There's going to be some more sort of cavities up here that I've got to sort of design and work out what's going in those bits. So that's going to have some guitar effects circuitry kind of things in there. But let's see. So if I don't make too much noise getting these out. So these are all some of the, there's the camera up there. So these are all the different pickup inserts, you know, based on Transformers characters. I've got about 13 printed at the moment, you know, different colors and things to match the original 80s cartoons. None of these sort of modern ones. But, you know, basically each of those is a different pickup combination. Yeah, they just keep coming, which, you know, I've just had a whole heap of fun. And that was when I had the idea for the guitar. I was going to make these somehow out of wood or aluminium or something and just have a few basic ones. But, you know, I played around with getting the right size sort of insert, and I've got, let's see, yeah, just like little handles on the end to lift them in and out. There'll be magnets on the back, so it'll just sort of click in place. So basically, once I came up with a design that would fit, it was just a matter of having like a base template. I then had to create the different sort of cavity sizes for different types of pickups, and where the screw holes go. And then it was just a matter of then having all those files and just dropping in the right place, and then aligning up where the screw holes are going to go in the body. So, yeah, the 3D print has been great just to do all that. You know, these kind of control covers for the back plate.
I love it.
And
Is there a risk that you're going to have more fun building all of these parts than the guitar itself?
I think so. Yeah, I think that like the woodwork side of it, I've made the neck. I haven't carved the back of it yet, and the body was sort of done. And then as soon as I got the 3D printer, like that was it. So in terms of like, you know, designing sort of components, one of the other sort of fun ideas is that if you remember there was the Transformers that were the cassette players, and the cassettes sort of came out.
Soundwave,
and what's the other one? Blaster. That was the Autobot. So I found, you know, and people create all these kind of files. So I actually found and modified some of these little, you know, cassette kind of things. So that's what that's the next step, is to work out how I can print some of these and incorporate these into the back of the guitar. And then each of these will be a different, like, mini guitar effect, like a little boost
no way.
Yeah.
No way.
So
that's crazy.
So on the guitar.
Oh.
So yeah, I've got to work out where that's going to go on the back. So I'm going to have 4 in there. So some combination of these, whether or not you open them into, you know, adjust controls or whatever. And then that's what these are on the front. So that'll be where am I going? That'll be a rotary switch. And then 4 of these plus an LED and a switch to turn them on and off. So the idea is that I'll have, so each of the circuits, the volume control will be on the guitar, to obviously just balance the sound, and then, you know, any other trim pots or anything sort of adjust on the inside. But, you know, the whole idea of this guitar came from testing different pickup configurations in guitars that I might build for myself or for other people, and playing around with guitar effects, which I've kind of done in a couple of guitars already. Whereas this one, I can just change parts in and out. I'll work out, you know, the different type of connectors, so I don't have to solder in each time. That I can have everything sort of wired to a central panel, and you can, you know, just sort of clip them in and out. So, you know, that was sort of my project that was in the background last year. And now this is sort of something that I'm just having heaps of fun with. Loving the 3D printer. I haven't sort of done a lot of YouTube recently, but and basically because, you know, I wasn't enjoying it as much, or didn't have the ideas for it like a fun video. Whereas this one now, this is like I'm having way too much fun editing the the videos and playing around with it. So yeah, the 3D printer was just a way to make this like work and have a lot of fun doing it. But I've been printing, having to play around with the fretboard. I've got the fretboard radius jig that I made, just with a little trim router, which I just made out of timber. So they're in the garage. So I've played around with 3D printing sort of the bases for those, and just have them for different fretboard radiuses. So yeah, all of those kind of things, and that's sort of the goal that for this year now I can have all of those set up. So the everyday processes are easy. So I'm not kind of thinking, how can I prove this next time or changing it each time? I can kind of get those processes set up with the aid of some 3D printing and better workflow. So I can then have fun doing all of the the creative new things that kind of keep me interested and keep me wanting to get in the garage and do a lot more.
Hey, Arran, quick question. So you've built guitars with built-in effects already, right?
Correct, yes. Yep.
Right, so I plan on doing something very similar. I'm not going to step on your toes. Mine's going to be a little bit different. But I have a question for you. Are all your effects that are in your guitars, are they in series so that one effect hits the other? Is that what happens?
This will be the first that'll have more than one. So, the other one, so the other ones have just had the one effect in. The idea for this one is that at the end of the day, if I take away all the extra stuff, it is just to test different effects to see what they sound like. So I don't sort of plan on having 2 or 3 on at once. So the plan is just to have the rotary switch, so it's just one on at a time. So however that signal path works,
Are you
whether that's series or I've mucked around with the wiring diagram for it, or it's up in here. But yeah, that's the idea, that these will only be in this one. The plan is to wire them so it's just switching between them, so there's only one on at a time. But obviously, once it's all in there, it could
Makes
be
sense.
wired in different ways. Yeah.
So because I had this crazy idea, when I was a kid, when I was like a really young kid playing guitar, I don't know if this ever happened to you guys back in the day. Sometimes I would get I'd catch a radio signal, through my amp or pickup. I don't know how it worked. I don't know what the antenna was, but I catch an AM radio station, and it would be I lived in South Texas, so it would be it would be Mexican music, Tejano music, on the AM station. And it was what did I do different? What's going on? Anyway, in the present, that doesn't happen anymore, right? Maybe it's because there's no AM stations anymore. Maybe because shielding's better. I don't know.
Yep.
But my crazy idea was I'm going to put an AM radio in the circuit. Right. And you can mix it in when you want. And so, but I want to do it in parallel so that I can mix it in. I want to mix in the right amount of AM radio.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, interesting. Yeah. No, that sounds fun.
So I know exactly what you need there, Mark. I've actually got, I've been in contact with a local pedal builder, and this all started from, he built a small stone clone that's, if you remember, the small stone has one knob and one switch. And he's built me a small stone that has 5 knobs and 6 switches, just to control everything over it. Anyway, in the chat, we were talking about it, and he's like, what other pedals do you want, man? What do you need? And I'm like, well, I always use my phaser is always on, but just, really slow, really low in the background. What I need is a blend pedal. So he's actually gone ahead and created this blend pedal that basically allows you to have 2 inputs, and you just have a knob that's basically wet and dry. Just, essentially, I guess it's not so much 2 inputs as it is an effects loop that you can drop into any point of your signal chain. And you could feed your AM signal in through that, and you just have one single knob on the guitar, man. It would work. I don't know what you use it for, but...
Do you all know a company called Old Blood Noise Endeavours that make pedals? So I'm sure it's them. I'm looking at one now. I think it's this one. They build a pedal which is a signal blender, but I think it does lots of weird things. So you can have all your different things that you want to blend together, but different touch of different buttons, it blends them in series, in parallel, overlaps things, drops things out. It just seems like a a whole world of different sounds you can get from just the pedals you've already got. And I love that idea. This weird pedal board that I'm going to be building in my live streams next month, I bought just a really simple circuit which allows you to flick the position of a pedal from anywhere in the chain to somewhere else. Just so you have it set up at the start or the end, and it would just flick between the two, which I thought would be good for my EQ pedal. But anyway, there's so many things you can do by just the way you blend it in or position it differently. I'm very excited to see, though, blending in other things like the AM radio. We used to have where I used to rehearse when I was a teenager. It was a really, really run-down space at the back of a big estate that was like where people would go basically to dump cars they didn't want anymore. And this building was falling apart and had some porta cabins out the back, and all of them were kind of set up for rehearsing. And it was all just teenagers who couldn't afford much going there to use these really good amps, but they're all in bad condition. And maybe it was partly the bad amps, or maybe it was the bad wiring, but you'd be playing in your studio, your room, and then if you stopped playing, you'd hear the next rooms coming through your speaker cabs, because somehow all the systems seem to link together. It was super weird, but always quite fun.
My fuzz face pedal often used to pick up radio stations, and it was really strange that you'd have to have it at the right volume, but if you weren't touching the strings, you'd get the radio really clear. But as soon as you touch the strings and sort of ground it or whatever, it would cut out straight away. And I could never work out why it was doing or what combination. But yeah, just one of those really strange things again, simple.
And that's where the inspiration came from, Arran.
Yeah.
Like if you take apart your fuzz face and then touch the transistor with your finger, you'll, I think, create the antenna or whatever.
Okay,
I don't know.
Yeah. And I was like, well, am I the antenna? What's going on? I think actually on one of my early Instagram posts when I first started, when it was the cigar box guitar things, I think I filmed the video and put it on. I have to go and watch it and see. But yeah, it was quite amusing.
I bought a set of little walkie-talkies for my kids so that when I'm in the workshop and they're in the house and maybe someone's upstairs, we've got a walkie-talkie each that we can chat on. And we only had them a week or two. And then my oldest was sitting in the living room, and then suddenly someone was talking on the walkie-talkie that wasn't one of us. And clearly some other child nearby was on the same frequency, and it freaked my daughter out. And it reminded me of CB radios, how truckers used to contact each other. What you need, Mark, is a number of people with the same guitar setup as you, so you can just tune into each other in different parts of Texas and jam along with your AM signals. That's inspiration from the past.
Yeah, so for me, I think I've got a few other. I think it's project finishing year for me. I had a lot of. I think I only finished one guitar last year at the start, but then started. I've probably got 4 or 5 on the go. So a couple of the sort of serious ones. So this is a commission, which is which one is it? That one. They're like a highly figured blackwood top, and then silky oak on the back. So that's a commission for a mate. And then another one, which will be this one here, which is the Camp for Laurel. So this one will be a semi-hollow. Oops, which one are we going? Oh, there we are. So I've got to attach the top still, but yeah. So I've kind of got, I've started a lot of projects in the last 6 or 7 months. So I'm really sort of keen the first half of this year is to have these 3 finished, which could sort of happen all at once, which would be pretty exciting.
Arran, if someone came and said, I want a guitar with interchangeable effects, I know you're doing it for your own sort of test thing, but would you be open to something like that? Because I think it looks cool having that.
Yeah, I think that's sort of part of it. That once, this one that I'm doing, I'll kind of learn a lot from that and work out what can happen and what can and can't be possible, basically. But yeah, I would be more than open to doing that, because it, I know that it kind of all the individual components sort of work, and it would just be a matter of what people would sort of want. I kind of, my little bit of experience playing around, I think the types of effects that you would want in, if it for a novelty sort of guitar, or the novelty effect that you can go as crazy as you want. But I think, just the like a gain or a boost, they're the kind of a light overdrive, they're the kind of things that I would kind of see myself using in a guitar, where rather than stepping on a pedal, you've just got the same circuit. We can just flick a switch or push pull pot, and it just gives you that little boost or overdrive, combined with, I'm a tube amp guy, and if you've got it at the right spot and you've got a little gain switch plus the volume control on your guitar, they're the kind of things that I would kind of see that, it could be good without distracting too much from everything else that's going on.
So what if you put a valve preamp in the guitar? You think I'm crazy? I know you think I'm crazy, and I am, but
well, they're in pedals, aren't they? There's a lot of pedals around that have the valves in the pedal, but
and they run on 9 volts or 12 volts.
Yeah, it could get a bit warm playing that guitar with that there.
I'm trying to look it up. I can't remember, but there was a pedal company. They made quite a lot of them. I thought it was Line 6, but I don't think it is. Now I'm looking it up. They were pedals, but you bought the unit and you just swapped out the top bit, which was the effect. So basically, it dropped into the enclosure with the pedal already in it. And I can't find who they are. I always wondered why you would want that, because it felt like if you're buying another effect, it wasn't that much cheaper than buying another pedal. So it seemed a bit pointless. Ty's just dropped in to say we've all got beards, basically. Happy New Year, Ty.
My brain is thinking about valve preamps in 3D printed guitars now.
3D printed acoustic guitars?
Valve preamp.
Yeah. So look, one of the things I've said before, and I've already said it on this stream today, is how having a chat like this is really great for getting creative juices flowing, I think, and sharing ideas. On the news today, I heard an article about Amazon, and Amazon, at least in the UK anyway, are forcing employees to go back to the office 5 days a week. So that started this year. Everyone, no working from home anymore. And their argument is, although there's evidence productivity might be better for many working from home, there's also evidence that a lot of interesting ideas and innovative ideas come from people discussing things in person. And I understand that water cooler moment, that kind of thing. But I wonder if that's just because I don't work for a big company that does lots of online meetings. I wonder if there's something different about the sort of free-flowing nature of just having a chat like this online, which is more like talking in person than being in a meeting. And so when you're working from home, you don't get these moments. And who would bother scheduling it into their day, an hour and a half long chat about nothing in particular?
We're kind of back to rubber ducking.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're just sitting there with your own thoughts all day long, you're not really likely to come up with anything too new.
I used to, when I used to work in arts education, there was another guy called Daniel that I used to work with a lot. And we would often work on a project which would be us either working alongside each other or taking in turns working with the group we were working with. So I think, I don't think I ever worked in prisons with him, but it was the same charity. So we were working a lot with people in like hospitals and hospices and things like that. And our best planning time always happened in a pub which had a pool table. So we'd go in, we wouldn't necessarily get a drink straight away or an alcoholic drink, but we'd play a bit of pool and we'd have a chat. And there'd be like one game of pool and then we'd sit down and write, and then we'd be playing pool. And then while we were playing, we'd have these other ideas. So it was that kind of distraction of things, but also being around each other, just chatting to spring things up. So constantly while we're talking, people might notice if they're watching on the video, I'm making notes on my Word document here and on my whiteboard up here about things that we're doing. I'm feeling very inspired today. It would be great to know if anyone listening is ever inspired by what we do. Let us know. But like I said, it'd be great if you are, but for me, I'm getting a lot out of it, so it's fine.
Yeah, I know I do too. You know, whether it's the chats we have here, and you know, it'll spark a new idea. But the ones that that I'm not on as well, that I'll listen to most of those, and yeah, it's really good. And then you know, I'll be getting ideas from that too. So I know I certainly do. It's really good.
Owen's just said, yeah, that water cooler moment Amazon talking about is great if you're in a department where you do innovative things and you're not just at a desk doing sort of data entry or whatever, which is fair enough. I once worked at a bar that was part of an advertising agency. So it was, I think I just left uni when I was doing it. So it put me off ever working in advertising, seeing the people working in advertising, how stressed they were and things. But the bar was open all day long, alcohol after a certain time. The rest of the time was like coffee. It had a table tennis table and a foosball table nearby and things like that. But this company had, this won't mean anything to any of you, but they had a really big advertising campaign during one of the Football World Cups where Sven-Göran Eriksson was the manager, and they, of the England team, and the advertising agency had the Sun newspaper as their one of their clients, and they somehow changed Sven-Göran Eriksson into Sven-Göran Eriksson, the Sun newspaper, and it won them loads of awards and stuff. But apparently the person that came up with the idea was one of the drivers that basically drove people around all day. It just in a conversation they're all having. So I think there are opportunities for anyone at any point to have a conversation with anyone else and spark in ideas and innovation. I don't know if that was a true story, or they use that as part of their marketing campaign to make their sort of campaign sound even better than it was, in that it was just a natural thing thought up by the people.
You know, I've always thought maybe it was a personal quirk that was maybe a character flaw that I hear people talking, and I know they're talking about, I know what they're talking about, but it reminds me of something that's so completely unrelated that if I bring it up, it's not going to make any sense to them, and they're going to think that I wasn't even listening. And a lot of times I can't help but let it out. But I mean, you never know in what context somebody is going to, take things. So yeah, it's completely, you could be picking up a cup of coffee and something that, the guy behind the counter says can spark, an idea that you wouldn't have had any other way. I thought I had mental illness, but, maybe it's a blessing.
Sort of on a connected note, so sorry to go off on tangents and back to talking about me. One of the things that I want to do going forward is find ways to work on things where I'm more or less forced to meet deadlines, or also follow ideas through, because I often have lots of ideas that I start and never really finish them, or come back to them a couple of years later. So I'm trying to do a few more collaborations, and there's a guy called Toby that I met at a guitar show a couple of years ago, I think it was. He was a friend of someone I knew who happened to live near where I lived, so I got introduced to him, and it turns out he's been going to guitar shows for like over a decade, working for different companies, helping promote their guitars and things like that, and he knows everyone. He has connections with the music world from when he used to be in bands, and he seems to have had lunch or dinner with any guitarist you can think of as well. They just want to drop into conversation. But he's really laid back. He's into sci-fi and Warhammer, and he lives around the corner to me, so excellent. But for the Jörg's Cup last year, I made a couple of instruments out of table legs, and I took them to this guitar show that he was helping me at. And they went down really well, because they were just weird things that were quite cheap that people wanted to play on, because it was a one-string instrument and you could just sort of do something on it, and people were saying it might help them spark something with the music they're writing or something like that. Anyway, Toby had a few ideas of how to innovate the design and change it a bit, and I don't really have time to do all of these changes, so occasionally I'll go back to it and do a little bit on it. But he's in a situation now where he's going to have a bit more time to not just do his day job, but do some other things. So I'm going to be collaborating with him on making these instruments. So I think part of the idea is building them together and him helping come up with the ideas of how to change them. But as someone that plays a lot like he does and records a lot, he can also then physically take these things away and play with them and work out what needs to change in them and how they can evolve. So I'm quite excited about this thing. We've got no pressure. We haven't got an end point of we want to make them to sell for this time or anything like that. We just want to get on doing it. And the idea of collaborating with someone with actually making something is really exciting, because be physically, potentially both of us in a room with tools at one point, but also just physically handing something backwards and forwards. So I'm super excited about that.
Well, early on you talked about, it might have been before we went live, it's hard to find somebody that you can really talk shop with. You know, coming on here is about the only time I really get to talk to anybody that has a clue what the hell, you know. It's been that way with like all the hobbies of my life. I can never talk shop with anybody. I don't know any other programmers. I don't know any, you know, I don't really know any other builders, you know, local that you could talk to in person. Most of my interests just tend to be weird enough, I guess, that you rarely get to talk shop with anybody.
Well, on that note, is there anyone you want to get on to chat to? Just let me know, message them. Hey, Mark, I've written down Ken Parker on my list. I'm going to try and drop him an email. That would be amazing.
That would be so amazing. Yeah.
I've got a few people that I think are maybe, I mean, some people are just friendly and respond anyway when you send them emails. But I think there's a few people that I might want to contact who might not even see the emails because they're at a level where someone else might manage their social media. But we'll see. So let me just let everyone know a few of the people we've got lined up. So we've got James from Yard Guitars coming on. Now, I can't remember what James's background was, which company he worked for, but he very recently went solo and he does a lot of CNC work on his guitars. And I heard about him through Paul from Mile House Studios because they know each other. So James is coming on in a couple of weeks' time. Unfortunately, he can only do a Wednesday, but Paul from Mile House Studios will be there as well. And I'll let you all know. But I think it will be our normal time this time we're doing now. So hopefully Scott and Mark will be able to make it on a Wednesday as well. We've got Barnaby Ralph, who's a luthier in Japan, who I think might also teach lutherie, but he's someone that Corey from Saul Goode Guitars, met through all those forums that Corey's been part of for a long time. So quite an established luthier. So I'm keen to get him involved, but also I'm just interested to know what building guitars is like in a country we haven't really talked about before. So that'd be something quite interesting. Gio from Tornelli Guitars and Todd from Sweet Tea Guitars, they've recently started up a new project together. So they're going to come on to talk about that. It's called Bench Critters. If you've been following them on YouTube, you'll see the new things that they're promoting. But basically, they haven't revealed it all yet. They seem to have spent quite a long time developing and designing tools which might be common woodworking tools, but evolved to suit lutherie specifically. Very intrigued by it. And also the design process they've gone through to get to their final stage. They've been mentioning that a bit on their videos. We've got Andrew Knight and Mike from In Gold Audio coming back on to talk about the design process. I'm very interested to hear how that whole teaching process that they've gone through to think about design and historic design does inform what they do. And then not until late March, but we've got Chris Garland. So anyone that knows Chris, he makes acoustic instruments. I don't think I've ever seen him make electric instruments, but he makes acoustic instruments, but he also makes amazing jigs. And when I was doing that Luthier's lunch break thing I talked about earlier, he had a regular slot on it where he talked about tools that he used that were just everyday objects that he'd somehow converted. And every time he picked up an everyday thing and used it, you'd think, that's genius. So I'm intrigued to hear about his thought process in his making as well. We'll see who else comes on. I've got a list. We want to get some more acoustic builders on. I mentioned those people that make the paints and the oils and things like that. Just want to do a quick thank you as well, as I try to do at the end of each episode, to the members of the channel. So the members, they help support the cost of the streaming, which, by the way, I'm not sure yet. I might change to a different provider. I'm not sure. The cost for this one's okay, but I think we might get some better options with some other people. We'll see. So that's Every Guitar Has a Story, Big Unit Guitars, Daniel Marquez, Daniel Dinsey, Gabriella Retti, Entropia Guitars, Electric Lady Guitars, Adair Guitars, BB Guitars, Simon Chapman, Mr. Glyn's Pickups, Dave Dickens, and Tasmaniak Guitars. Thanks. Yeah, and like I said earlier, I'm also doing, for the members, I do a weekly stream on Mondays, just a brief on the tour of my workshop. I haven't really mentioned the book that I'm writing at the moment. I've got until the end of February to get the copy to the editor, but I've been doing little updates on that for them, which when the book comes out next Christmas, I'm going to put together for a little promotion for the book. So I'm making sure I'm doubling up on everything I'm doing to be really, really practical. The fact I keep repeating that is me trying to reassure myself that I'm doing the right thing here. Yeah, fantastic. Bill's just joined the chat as we're finishing. Hi, Bill. And yes, it seems like you are going to have to rewatch this after the live stream. But don't forget, anyone, it comes out on the podcast normally on the Fridays, anywhere you get your audio. But if you want to watch live, that's every Thursday, various times, depending on our guests. Did anyone else have anything I've missed out that they wanted to talk about for like any goals for 2025?
I just want to get back.
I got a robot vacuum for the shop, and it cleans my floors automatically. I walk into the shop and it smells beautiful and it looks gorgeous, and the robot does everything.
Oh, you
Please don't tell me it's a Eufy Robo Vac.
living in the future. Great. On that note, the future of robo cleaning, I will say goodbye, everyone. See you next week.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
The Guitar Builders Collective is a group of like-minded people from all around the world at different stages of their guitar building journey. You can join us over on our forum to seek advice or share tips on guitar building processes, materials and tools, or just to share your builds. On YouTube, we have a regular podcast of guitar building chat where you can join the live stream or watch back on past episodes. Our Instagram page shares posts of members' builds and links you direct to their accounts. And for those of you on Facebook, we've got a private group that you can join, share and chat along with. The Guitar Builders Collective is a welcome and open space for all, so do pop by and say hi.